Hi folks, today I'm going to talk about Code Commit, which is an AWS source code management where you can basically push code from your local to AWS Code Commit. So this is something similar to any other repository management like GitHub or GitLab, but this is a product exclusively of AWS. So I'm going to demo some of these in a three-part series. The first part would be code commit. The second part would be code build, which is basically taking your code and kind of putting it into a location. In this case, I would be using again an AWS S3 bucket, and then finally a code deploy. So I'll break this into a three-part series because to keep things interesting and keeping it short for like a 10 minutes duration for this video on code commit. So let me jump into what I want to show you right away. So this is my root folder where you have to create a prerequisite like an AWS account, which is a root account, which is pretty self-explanatory when you go into AWS console management of how you want to create your root account. You can just kind of read through it and should be able to create an account using multi-factor authentication, like an email and a phone number. And that's what I've done here. This is my root account created in North Virginia. But never try to kind of push your code using root. So the good idea is to create an user. So I use IAM to create a new user. I already have a user called Naveen. Just for going through the steps, I would just show you all how to create one using the IAM. So let's do this. I'm going to create another account with my last name called Krishnan, and I'm going to use the AWS Management Console access. This is what is used to kind of log in with this name. So I'm going to do that. And then what you want to do is click on next permission. So here you want to kind of attach a particular policy for what you want to work on. So in this case, I'm going to work on code commit. So if I type in code commit here, it should pull you up with these three of the access that you can use. I'm going to use like a commit full access, which is more like, you know, an admin access. I'm going to select that. And then I'm going to go into, I can just give a tag. I can call this second user. It's optional, but just for, you know, to keep track of it, you can use a tag. And then you say next. And then you kind of create, you can see that I've created a code commit full access user. And then I say create user. So it's basically created me an user, but make sure that you download your username password into your local. So when you kind of log into Krishnan, you need to use that user ID and password. This can be a temporary password. You can go in and change it to something that's more legible. So now I'm going to show you how you can push your code into code commit. So I'm just going to take this project associate sample that I have on my local, and then I want to push this into code commit. So let's get started. So I'm going to go into code commit, and I already have another project called Hello World, but I'm going to create a new one. So let's keep always the name as the same. So I would want to call this as rest assured sample, similar to the name that I have in my local. So we don't have any kind of a conflict when we're trying to push. So once I've done that, I can just say a sample demo for code commit. Now I'm going to hit the create button. So there is two ways of pushing your code. One is through HTTPS and one is through SSH. It kind of gives you a description of depending on what operating system that you're using, Mac OS, Windows, and Linux. If I'm using my Mac, this is a couple of steps that needs to be followed for an SSH push, or you can do an HTTPS. For this video, I've done it through HTTPS. You can do it in either way, but for simplicity, I've just used HTTPS. You can also use SSH. Both are fine. So once that's done, I'm just going to copy this URL. This is what needs to be set on my local for me to push up into code commits. So I'm now in my local, and then I'm going to set this URL as my remote. So I can do git remote add. Instead of origin, I'm just going to call this demo, and then I don't need the git clone again. So I'm just going to get rid of that. And that way I'm going to set my remote URL. So now if I do git remote -v, you see that I have established my URL connection to code commit. So this is an important command. Just say git remote add, and then you can give any name that you want. In a previous project I called it origin, now I'm calling it as demo. So when you push your code, you'll say git push demo and then the branch name as master, which is the default branch. So now let's try to push this code into code commit. So I'm going to push everything up. So I'm going to say initial commit, and then let's try pushing this to code commit. So everything is committed, and now I'm going to say git push. Instead of origin, it's called demo, and then I'm going to push it to master. Let's see what happens. So it's pushing, and let's go and check in our code commit. So if everything is gone right, voila, there's the second and rest assured got pushed up into code commit. So this is how we kind of push our code into code commit. As you can see, the setup is very simple. You create a repo name, and then set up your git clone URL in your remote branch, like how I have shown you here in this command, where you say git remote add, and you can call this any name and then give this URL, and that establishes the connection. And then you do your git add, git commit, and then just push your code. That's it. So it's pretty straightforward. So we have kind of shown here how we can set up our repo into code commit, and then now we can go into code build, which would be my next video. Thanks for watching. Bye-bye.